Well, good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to all our dear listeners everywhere across the globe. My name is Silva Kachikian, and I am your host. I welcome you to another of AIWA's virtual events, Candid Conversation, where we connect you to issues of immediate concern among our global network of Armenian women, and we share with you the incredible power of women who are strong and thriving and who share their collective wisdom to uplift each other. We are continually adapting to the changing needs in the various communities of the diaspora and Armenia. And at no time has this adaptation been more urgent than it is now when we are facing an aggressive war in Karabagh, which started September 27 when the Azeris attacked Artsakh. Armenians are once again being crushed and pulled and pushed from all sides, and their human right to live peacefully within their compromised borders is being intentionally targeted. But every gunshot, every explosion, every battle, and every life lost strengthens our commitment to the homeland as we stand in solidarity with our sisters and brothers. Which brings me to today's candid conversation with our two guest panelists. But before we get into the discourse, I want to remind our listeners that there will be a question and answer. So please use that question button to type in your questions and we will get to them as we progress. Back to the conversation. Maro Matosian is a champion in the plight for women's rights. She is the founder and executive director of the Women's Support Center in Yerevan, assisting women and children victims of domestic violence, as well as advocating for their defense, working with government to change legislature. The Women's Support Center is one of the fundamental initiatives that AIWA supports strongly. Lusine Yeghiazaryan is Vice President of Finance, serving as Chief Audit Executive at GoPro Inc. Her expertise across multiple industries comes with a long list of achievements and titles. But the title that we cherish most here at AIWA is that she is an active member of the board of directors, having served on the executive committee of AIWA's San Francisco affiliate. Now, two women earnestly devoting their attention and efforts to garner support for the homeland. Maro, thank you for giving us this time. You are in Armenia, working day and night, following the situation that is unfolding. Talk to us about that and the role of the Women's Support Center. Welcome. Maro, you're muted. Hang on. Can you unmute?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to share with my friends and supporters from the diaspora the events that I have no words to describe. They're overwhelming, they're very stressful, they're very tense, and yet with resilience and commitment and really a sense of determination for survival of this nation has pushed us all to go beyond our limits, to really focus and be strong, to be able to resist, to be able to fight on, to be able to organize. And I have to say that once again, if the men are on the front, the women are too on a different front. And I want to talk a little bit about that. The Women's Support Center, since the war started on September 27, has been really the center. The physical location of the building has been transformed into a warehouse. The Ministry of Emergency has sent us a lot of boxes of clothes that we do a triage per age and per size to give to refugees that are coming into Armenia. We also have had donations to distribute food to them, and also hygienic products. Many of the international donors had diverted their funding from the projects that we had to implement into emergency relief. And I have to say that the silver line to all this is that we have less and less calls on domestic violence, since the men are on the front, but the entire staff, volunteers, we have like almost 15, 20 volunteers a day that come and they help us to prepare these bags or boxes of assistance to the refugees. We try to really help everyone in this. For example, among the clothes, if we find out warm clothes for men, we ship them to where it's needed. It is really not only the Women's Support Center's action, even though we were chosen by the ministry to be one of a hub where the information that comes from the ministry of the families, that the process is like this: the families arrive, they register to their local city hall type of in their neighborhood, and then they call us, or they call the ministry, and they refer the calls to us. So we get daily lists from the Ministry of Social Affairs on families that need assistance. So it's a general coordination which has worked very, very well. And I have to say that for the first time, Armenia, the state of Armenia, has shown a tremendous amount of coordination, a tremendous amount of organization. Maybe it's not perfect, but it is really beyond our expectations. The needs are tremendous, and you can imagine. And we have to think about long-term sustainability for these families, the refugees, and for the country in general. We're going to have a lot of wounded people. We will end. And to tell you frankly, the reason I mentioned that the women are on a different type of front, because in the absence of men, the women have started to organize. The women are collecting. The women are coming out of their own pocket. They are donating. They're collecting children's clothes. They're their clothes, because the majority of the refugees are women and children that come here. And you know, in every time of a crisis, the women are most affected, because they take now the burden of the family, and you know, the poverty is much more affected on the women and the children. I had numerous stories of women who gave birth really upon arriving in Armenia or on the way to Armenia. There are a lot of we have women psychologists who are now helping to alleviate the trauma of displacement, and you know, families that have their husbands on the front, or their fathers on the front, their sons on the front, husbands and sons on the front. It's really, and they don't have any news from them. You can imagine the hardship, and you can imagine the stress these women feel day to day. But I have to say, the resilience of Karabakh women, you cannot find anywhere else. These women are like iron. You know, they still manage to smile. They still manage to say that, you know, we are fine. You know, think about you guys, because they are fine. There is going to be a shortage of food and supplies, and we have to think about that, because long term, many of them, as you know, Stepanaget has been heavily bombarded with cluster bombs, and therefore many houses have been damaged, the windows, and the winter is coming. So perhaps many of these families cannot return right away upon a ceasefire to back to Karabakh. You know, I will stop here. I have to say one more thing, though, that you know, it is very important to have a government now where people believe in this government, that the people realize that they're not being cheated, that there is no corruption, there is all effort and all hands on deck to really support the fighters, to support the nation, to support those in need. So this monumental effort It will be all focused on All Armenia Fund, or Himnatram, for those in the United States, All Armenia Fund, for donations. They just revised the budget, and Armenia has to take more loans to support itself, and 67% of the budget is in deficit. So you can imagine the burden that we have, but it's a must. If we want to survive, this is a must. And I urge every one of you to, at least give $50 a month, monthly, for a year or two to All Armenia Fund, because it's our survival, and we owe it to our nation. As Nicole Pashinat said, we are not there to be on the way to Derzor. We are there for a victory. And I just want everybody to have that in mind and have the resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maro, for that overview of the intensity of need and the amount of work that's going on with the women behind the scenes, but they are really more the forefront, because without that work, those men out there on the borders will not be able to do what they're doing at this point. We'll come back to the Women's Support Center. What I'd like to do is to ask Lusine, who spearheaded the AIWA's fundraising efforts to engage the community. Can you please tell us your perspective on enabling diaspora support during this horrific conflict? Lusine.
Yes, thank you, Silva. Maro, all of our hearts, souls, and every effort these days go in supporting everyone in Armenia. And thank you for having the time to join us and share your perspective. We follow your daily updates. We follow others, updates from the government and all of the organizations. So, of course, the situation is incredibly difficult. This is beyond crisis management. As many mentioned, it's an existential threat. It's a war for survival. We will prevail. We are forming a different national identity across all of Armenian communities and country of Armenia. And so if there is any silver lining in all of this tragedy, is how we're appearing and coming forward as Armenians and as Armenian women in establishing new type of identity, new type of activation, new type of presence in the 21st century as Armenian women, as Armenian identity of the communal identity around the world. What I wanted to talk about is really a call to action to all of us in diaspora. We are not in Armenia, but my brother is on the front line. My parents are there. Many of you have friends, family, relationships that are fighting every single day. What the minimum we can do is activate ourselves to the level that is beyond what's comfortable. That is, if you don't feel the daily sense of contribution, whether that's with your time and skills, whether that's financial, whether that's with advocacy, we are not doing enough. And I know I will be forceful in these words, but it is the type of situation that each one of us and each one of your friends and family need to feel that when this is over, we did all we could with every single molecule in our body that we were part of this. And we help the country survive, and we help the nation prosper. Maro mentioned this is going to be a long-term effort. I even think we need to talk to the government and work with the government to issue some bonds for the diaspora and international community to help alleviate the financial burden, in addition to international loans. My call to action are the three things that we can do in the diaspora. First is looking closely at your own skill set and identifying where you can be essential to the effort, whether that's in media, whether that's in technology support, whether that's in the cyber war that's going on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and incredible preparation that the Azeri government put into this way months and months and months in advance, having invested into technology and bots that are now scrolling internet and putting and trending different threads up that misrepresent the situation. So first thing is, where are you in terms of your time and hands-on efforts? The medical professionals around the country are working with Armenian and non-Armenian organizations to organize medical supplies, humanitarian aid. So I call to all of you to find a way to plug in into the effort and plug in at the point where you're strained. You're strained and you could not do more. The second thing is the financial, the donations to Armenia Fund and donations via, if you want a match, right now the biggest match out there is through AGBU with Armenia Fund. Our AGBU match is 1-to-1 up to 5 million. We had been successful in generating a high degree of corporate matches. Those are more granular. We need to work with each company and people in the company, but it's a grassroots effort that has been very successful. But for overall kind of bigger picture, AGBU is the one that's matching, formally matching all of the donations, and most of the Armenians go to AGBU. The non-Armenians are participating in a lot of the corporate match programs to support us. And the third one is the advocacy. So diaspora, Armenian Americans, and Armenians in other countries, in France, in Switzerland, in Russia, where we have large diaspora communities, we must engage with our local governments, with federal governments, with national governments at the level that we have not engaged before. In the US, ANCA is doing a good job, putting up the resolutions, proposing various formats to work with mayors, to work with local governments, state level, federal level. There is a lot of information out there. There are a lot of petitions. Please participate, take an active role, make phone calls if you need to your Congress people in your districts. Sign all the petitions you can find from your district and for your state and federal. Participate in advocacy locally so we can be heard, we can get the voice out there. And the international community is slowly reacting, incredibly slowly, painfully slowly, but is reacting. The presence of ISIS militants is, I think, a turning point for a lot of communities that attempt to stay neutral. But it's a trigger, and that it's a red line, as they say, in many kind of neutral communities that should have never been there. And so that it angers neutral observers, so to speak, and gives an element for the Armenian and Artsakh people to be better heard and understood. So 3 things, please, everyone, there are 50 people on this call, you have community friends and large networks. Take this conversation today as a call to action to do above and beyond that any of us have ever maybe done. I went through 1988 was the earthquake. I was 11 years old in Armenia, and I saw what our parents and everyone else had gone through in mobilizing, and where diaspora was in mobilizing post-earthquake, recovery. 1994 was 17, that first Karabakh war. This is the 3rd degree of mobilization at this level between country of Armenia, between Artsakh people, between international diaspora and beyond diaspora, beyond Armenians. So I encourage you to leverage whatever silver bullet we can find in this situation, which is national unity, national presence, sense of identity in the 21st century, the support and the skills that we're developing, extraordinary skills through this situation, to put them to good use when we work on recovery and reconstruction efforts that are to come. And hopefully the ceasefire will be in place very, very soon, and we will focus on putting the country and the nation back to place where we belong.
Thank you, Lusine, honestly, for that heartfelt and very, it's an emotional time for all of us. And I am pleased to see that the diaspora is actually pulling together from all sides to do the best they can, but our best is not always good enough. It has to go beyond, and I do agree with that. I have, when you said the ceasefire might be, and Maro also mentioned in one of her reports, Maro reports every day, day 1, day 2, day 3, yesterday was day 12, I think today will be day 13. And she said that, like Lusine said, that there is a ceasefire that is a negotiation that will take place probably next week. Unfortunately, when ceasefires have been announced and big companies or big nations want to take that into consideration, the aggression becomes more intense because the opposition is going to want to do everything they can to destroy as much as they can. So now this is even a graver time for all of us in Armenia to actually have a stronghold on the borders and save every life that we can. There was an issue that COVID in itself was an issue before all of this. How are we handling the situation with COVID, given this current situation, which is very grave in itself? Maro, I saw you shaking your head. Can you?
You know, let me tell you a story. When in '92, around Arax River, where now is heavy fighting, Jebrail, the Armenians won, and there was a young soldier, maybe 19-year-old, pacing around, all day long, smoking a cigarette. And this a friend of ours, American Armenian, came to him, pulled the cigarette away from his mouth, and he said, "Don't you know that cigarettes can kill you?" So this is the same situation now. Mm-hmm. People do not give unfortunately. People, I enter a taxi, I tell them, put on your mask so I can enter the taxi. And they don't even listen. Nobody, at the office, I have to fight with people. Stay away from me, put on your mask. And unfortunately now the numbers are the highest that they've ever been.
No, they're going to be.
And it's no surprise. It's no surprise. And I tell them in a different way. Do you want the hospital bed for a wounded soldier be taken by a COVID patient that you can prevent? And still, people's minds are somewhere else right now. And unfortunately, we're going to see the aftermath of this quite severely. I'm happy to see that the officials are all wearing masks, but the population at large, nobody, and it's a rhetoric that it's not resonating anymore because war has taken precedence. Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, yes.
I just want to mention one thing that to add to Lucine's 3 points of action, which I totally fully agree on. I have had word from people, especially LA, that are sending some cargo planes to Armenia, that people are putting bottles of water in there. Please, if you have a list from one of the Ministry of Emergency, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Health, do that. Do not just because you feel good and you want to go to Target and get some towels and some t-shirts, do not do that. We have enough here in Armenia. We can buy cheaper, we don't pay sales tax, and we can invigorate the economy. So do not get those things. Get exactly what the ministries have asked you for. Somebody wrote to me that they went to CVS and bought a lot of stuff. We do not need CVS stuff. Yeah. We need surgical equipment. Yeah. We need sutures. We need sterile gowns. That type of, we are at that level, not at CVS level.
We have access to the medical list from the healthcare ministry that works in collaboration with Defense Ministry. Anyone that wants to work on medical supplies, at the moment, I believe the pharmaceuticals were put on kind of hold a little bit, and the priority is on medical supplies. We have partners, we have doctors on it. So anyone on this call, if you want to get involved, let me know. I'll connect you to all of the right people.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I do believe that that is the urgency right now, the medical supplies and financial, because that's the only way.
Sorry, Silva, if you want to put something on the planes, it's sleeping bags, it's raincoats, those poncho style raincoats, and the reason I'm saying, and tents, and the reason I'm saying that is because so much material was used to manufacture them in Armenia that they ran out of material to do it. We don't know if when it's coming more material from Russia, perhaps to produce more. So and you know, the soldiers, they don't have the possibility to wash anything, so they're staying in one post. They're using those sleeping bags. Probably they get all muddy and dirty, and they're left there. They move somewhere else. So this is a constant need, a continuous need. I have to say that the army, the basic army units, they have supplies. It's the volunteers that came and the reserves that came afterwards that they don't have the supplies. So that's why is that the need has increased tremendously.
Okay, and we're assuming that it is to be in camouflage, the tents and
not necessarily.
Not necessarily the raincoats and sleeping bags. All right, not necessarily. Well,
I mean, don't get them bright red and yellow. You know.
No, of course not. But
it's very neutral, but it is preferred if the price is very similar and it's not a huge markup. And
right.
I hear that camouflage is preferred. Yeah.
Absolutely, and a lot of the army surplus stores here do that, and they also will do for donations. I've tried that through the Salvation Army as well, so we can probably muster some stuff from here as well, which answers the question, because somebody was asking, what else can we do besides the financial donation? What is it that you need? And you've answered the question already on that one. You mentioned that there was a shortage, or there could be a shortage of food and supplies. How do you think that that is going to be handled? Is that going to then, the borders are closed, where will we be getting that, and how would you assume?
The borders are not really closed. Georgia has stated that they will not honor any military transport through there for Azerbaijan or for Armenia. But in terms of produce or in terms of clothing, that's not a blockade or anything like that. Food, you know, food comes into the country. It's not like supermarkets are, you know, doing very good business nowadays, because people are buying and then sending to their relatives or to the, you know, front. And they're donating a lot. And as I mentioned on Sunday, they were pretty much the shelves were empty, because people, especially of certain products, the ones that you can use immediately, like spreads and cans of meat, because they don't have the possibility to warm anything there. So what is you buy staples like macaroni and rice and you know, lentils or beans for refugees, you cannot buy the same things for the army, because they cannot cook it anyway. So yeah, it's a different type of food items.
I have another question for Maro that one of our listeners is asking and saying, what are we doing about the elderly in Artsakh? How are they also being moved out? What is their, I know that they usually have the strength, they are the ones who really want to be there to stand guard, but are we being able to take care of them out of Artsakh, getting them out of Artsakh?
You know, it's interesting because we have very few elders coming to Armenia. They really want to stay there. They don't imagine anywhere else. And they've stayed there for all the wars, 90s, the 4-day war, and even now. The only elders that I've seen are the ones that either have a medical issue or are, you know, at our shelter now, we also have refugees. And we have a woman in wheelchair that came. So yeah, those that they need care more, they come with their children. But the other ones, they stay there.
Yeah. And the shelters, how many shelters do you have?
two shelters.
A women's support center.
Yes, two shelters.
Two shelters.
And one of them now, it's it's interesting because for the past, I mean, since the war, we didn't have any domestic violence case that needed shelter. So we moved everybody in the other shelter, and we opened this shelter, the smaller shelter for refugees. And now we have about 4 women and 14 children refugees at one of the shelters.
Okay. Lusine, you said your family, you said you have family in Armenia, and you also have a brother on the border, or fighting to preserve and save our nation, basically. Do you hear news from them, and what sort of news are you getting from them besides the overview that you gave us? Because I know it's a huge concern, and you are still marching on here, doing everything you can on this side, which we should all be doing, but if you can give us a bit more insight onto that.
For my brother, he's a married man with 3 small children. He is working, supporting the soldiers on the front line with deliveries back and forth from Yerevan through Goris to the front line, delivering food, supply, bringing back wounded, and generators, for example, and other things. So he wasn't drafted as a soldier. He's in his 40s, but as a volunteer and someone who has a local business and a truck. There are a lot of people that are doing this back and forth, logistics, but all the way to the front line and back on those highways, on the Stepanakert, and bringing women back, bringing children back, working with hospitals on any kind of urgent. It's a little, it is well organized, but there are a lot of people that are kind of unofficially plugged into the system of logistics to try to move things around. Well, my parents don't say much. They say we will prevail, but I think, the closest family members are more, they don't share a lot of details. And I don't think there is much to share. It is what it is. We're going to get through it. We're getting through it day to day, but it is an existential question in the sense of, and my parents just arrived there on Thursday before the war started. They were here for this entire year in San Francisco with us. They left in mid-September, right a few days before the war. And they arrived there on Thursday. They recovered Friday, Saturday, and then they started. So I think the shock of everything, and here they were very strictly observing COVID rules and not going anywhere. And basically I had them almost locked up in the house and in the garden, and masks mandatory, and they're older people, but they get there, and this whole situation. I mean, I think they're still in a sense of shock. And with my brother's role, and of course every single family has someone that's either doing the runs back and forth, or working on the front line, or fighting on the front line, different degrees of exposure, but it is, highly dangerous and very stressful situation. So I have a lot of friends in the government. I have a lot of friends in nonprofits, a lot of, we're working through a lot of organizations, whether that's with medical or, through last year's, we had a large IT Congress in Armenia, and we had almost all of the IT companies around the world with Armenian presence, and some without Armenian presence participate in that event. So that gave us a platform to reach out to a lot of technology companies and contacts there to try to coordinate some efforts, at minimum donations, corporate matches, some level of awareness. So this, what can I add to what Maro had already shared?
Let me add something to what you're saying, because you're also working with a driver, and I have to say that these are really heroes. People are, you're exposed to danger, and I have a lot of respect for your brother, and a lot of respect for the guys that work with us. They go back and forth. It's a treacherous road. It takes about 5-6 hours to get, and and they come back, they sleep for 3-4 hours, and they do it again. And they've been doing this for 13 days.
Yeah.
Okay. This, and they're not paid.
Yeah.
You know, they eat whenever, wherever. And this is the situation that we are in. Everybody, every able body does something for the cause, for this existential cause that we have.
I think that's what, you know, the entire country, from an 8-year-old child to a 90-year-old grandma, is mobilized to either support. I mean, I know people that make, you know, $100 a month pension, you know, on the pension and this, and they're donating their 5,000 drums to the hymna drum, you know, and this is pervasive. Families emptied up their children's closets, their own things, to bring, you know, close together. My brother and a lot of other small businesses, you know, he had inventory. He just flew to Dubai 2 weeks prior to that, and he's in kind of trade business, and he brought in a lot of small equipment, technical equipment, but some, you know, clothes and this, and all of that is donated. You know, they just basically are emptying warehouses, emptying out inventory. This will have, of course, a huge impact on the economy in the next year or two. But right now, the number one priority is to minimize the loss of those boys on the front line, retain positions, allow some space for the government and the leaders to have room or some leverage for negotiations during ceasefire. So all of this is not in vain.
No, all of this is not in vain, and every penny spent is not in vain. Every dollar, every inch of our existence is in question at this point. You know, you mentioned all the people who work, you know, like your brother and so many other, the drivers, the transporters, the carriers, those who prepare the food. There's so many nameless heroes who help behind the scenes in however they do it. But I'll tell you what, they're not nameless heroes, because their purple star will come out in the victory of this war. So they will not be nameless, I'm sure. There was a question about how many women do we think are serving on the front lines? Do we have any idea? I know that there are women out there, but are they actually toting the guns and helping on the front line itself? Maro?
Yes, some are. There was, you know, in the 90s, there was Jogad, I don't know how to express this in English, like not a battalion, the battalion is bigger, but there were little units, military, you know, army units that made all of women. And now they said that, you know, we know how to shoot, we know how to fight, we know the rules, and we want to join in. Some, they went on the front, depending on their skills. You know, a lot of the technology in this war is it's more complex, and they're looking for young people who know how to operate this technology. The older generation, unfortunately, they don't. It's a very high-tech war, and you know, they rely on people that they know, they have the expertise of that. It's not a war with Kalashnikovs anymore.
Yes,
it's drones. It's the injuries that we see are not from bullets, but are from explosions. So it's a different equation. But yes, there are women, and you know, actually, there was a woman who came, refugee, and she said, "My daughter is a sniper. She's on the front. My son is in the army. My husband also." I mean, this poor woman, she had only the grandchildren to look after. So yes, there are more and more women who join. Some of them on a volunteer basis with no skills, but the army registered them. She said, you know, I can cook. You know, I have a nice voice. I can sing for them, for the soldiers. I can wash their clothes. I can do whatever. I didn't even tell my parents that I'm gonna register for the army, but I came to do it. Other women decide to just give blood, donate blood. You know, everybody does something. Believe me. I have women who say, I cannot stay at home. Let me come to your center and do a triage of clothes. You know, it's this need to do something to help everybody.
And I think that that's the same need that everybody in the diaspora feels. And it's unfortunate. I mean, we can't be boots on the ground. We cannot do much more than donate and give to help fund this war, and medical supplies, and also financial assistance, because we have to give in terms of remembering that it is for the spirit and lives of the people who are living over there. I do have there was another question that came up, which said that in terms of the media, do you feel that Armenia is honoring the free media operations? In other words, is the press revealed?
Very much so, and more than Azeris. For example, the Azeris, to this date, they have not stated their deaths from this war, only civilian deaths. The Azeris are not allowing for the international media to roam freely. They're always accompanied by a government person. It's a very dictatorial regime. Whereas Armenia media and the international media are allowed to ask questions freely, to participate. We have daily press conferences from Ministry of Defense, from other ministries, emergency, health, depending on the situation. And they're asking freely questions. The only thing is that the media center that was in Stepanager has been moved out of there because of the bombardment, for the safety of the journalists. And but other than that, there really there are no restrictions on media. Now, when you say free media, you have to understand that some countries are more biased than the others in their reporting, but nevertheless, they have all accesses necessary.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you. I want to go back to basically, now that you're involved in this, and we know that the shelters that you have are now housing the refugees or people who are more, not necessarily because of domestic violence who are there, but now because of the violence against an entire nation and our entire identity. Can you just very briefly tell people about how, the Women's Support Center, I know it's domestic violence, but about how important that work was to probably bring what you're doing now to make it more important.
We are in the process of doing a very, very important project right now with the Ministry of Social Affairs and Council of Europe. And that is working on a 3-day national action plan of what the government should do in the next 3 years. And this is a very important document that the government is obliged to have and also is obliged to abide by. And we were in the process to discuss with the experts from Council of Europe, in discussions, in coordination with various ministries. As you know, domestic violence it's a multi-sectoral endeavor that from all the ministries they have to participate and at their level. And it all stopped. And today I just was able to allocate about 20 minutes to write some emails and follow up on certain things. We just don't have the time to do it. But eventually we are all hopeful that perhaps it's a matter of days that a ceasefire will come. We're very hopeful. And once that happens, I'm not saying that we'll go fully back to the normal schedule because there's so many refugees issues and all that, but definitely we will be able to concentrate more on our daily work. I have to write reports, I have to collect data, a lot of things that I have, we have to prepare women to go to trainings for vocational training, to register them. Some schools, they don't have the staff necessary for the training. We are paralyzed right now because all our energy and focus is on the war effort.
Maro, Can I ask you a question about how do you see in the next, let's say, 12 months, is the scope of your work and the organization work changing to merge now both the domestic violence cases and survivors, as well as, you know, highly socially unprotected kind of refugee women and children, especially those that had lost you know, their husbands or brothers, or, you know, a male, let's say, caregiver. Is that something that you see emerging from this?
You know, as an Armenian, I cannot be indifferent of the pain that is going on. And there will be cases that will need assistance. And if we can offer that assistance, we have the means to offer that assistance, I will not say, no, 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 I cannot do that because I have another job. You know, you still have to do in parallel. To what extent we will be doing, I don't know, but we still have to work in parallel. That's one thing. Secondly, you know, research has shown that veterans from war, people returning from war situations, they come with PTSD or concussions, and many of them who are not abusers become abusers. So we have to be very careful and very cognizant of the situation, and we have to inform the population and make population aware that this can be an uptick of cases of domestic violence.
Yeah. Yes, so your work will never be done, never be finished until we get all the legislature passed and everybody working together to eliminate globally the domestic violence issues. We are, for the sake of time, I want to know if there are any comments or questions. We have the president of AIWA board of directors is on with us, Ani Kharajan, and if you have anything to add before I thank everyone. And let me see if there's another comment or question that comes in.
Maro, thank you so much for being out in the field. Thank you for all you're doing. And thank you for thinking about beyond this conflict, right? Because really your work is just starting, right? When the ceasefire happens, your work has not ended. It's
I'll never be unemployed.
Right. It's so I want you to know that we're with you. We know we're not on the field with you, but we're here. I think you need to ask and let us know. We'd love an update from you in a couple of months after the ceasefire to see where it stands. And we're mindful of what is needed on the ground there. So thank you for clarifying, not CVS and Target, but focus on the critical, right? Tents, we heard that. Tents, rain gear, sleeping bags, because we want to protect.
Somebody made a note that they are shipping about 5,000 sleeping bags.
8,000 sleeping bags, yeah.
Very good.
3,000 going from Bay Area, and then 5,000 is largest sleeping bag manufacturer in the US. Is, I believe, partly owned by an Armenian, or the CEO is an Armenian gentleman, and he had donated 5,000 sleeping bags over the last 2 days. So there's some work going on there. They might be, I say we, but because I'm just aware of what they're doing, but the team might be able to do more. So I would say medical supplies, tents, raincoats, gear, those are the ones it looks like sleeping bags are getting motion.
Yeah. So after the conflict stops, it's recovery and healing and redeploying, right? Because if their current work is no longer there because of the conflict, retraining. So those are all super important skills. And Maro, just thank you for everything that you're doing. Stay safe.
Thank you for your support, really.
Stay healthy. And Lusine, how would we ever do this without you? So thank you for leading the AIWA efforts for fundraising for this specific event. And as Lusine, you said earlier, don't stop, give until it hurts, get everyone involved, make this the conversation that matters in these difficult 2020 days that we're experiencing, right? Different countries, different networks, but all together as one. So I'll thank you and turn it back over to Silva, but most grateful to you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to let everyone know that we will, when we send out the thank you for participating or for registering, the link to the resolutions and petitions that you can write and take an active part in that. And also the Armenia Fund, Himnatram, and some of the other links that are there. You can also find all of that on our website. Now, I want to personally thank both our panelists, Maro and Lusine, for their time. Yes, go ahead, Maro.
I just want to add one more thing.
Go ahead, please.
You're right, Silva, that there was a huge preparation, and the Turkish Azeri machine of PR has been very influential with the tremendous resources. And I want to point out the effort of a group of women, some of them AIWA members, Judy Saryan, Judy Norsigyan, some women in Armenia, Lerna Ekbekçioglu, Melissa Bilal. They have reached out to very prominent progressive international figures and brought them on board to put pressure to write letters of accusing the Azeri and Turkish aggression. Secondly, from Boston, Madeleine Minassian is working with Kurkcan, I believe, from Boston Globe, and they're trying to send information to US media. So it's very important. And I have to say, in my opinion, the turning point was the protest in LA in front of CNN. That switched completely and ignited all the other protests around, diaspora, and it turned completely the public opinion. It started to change. So I think it's in our favor. As is, there have been international resolutions condemning Turkish aggression and Azeri's aggression. So we have to be going strong. Yes. And this is the strength of the diaspora.
Yes. Thank you very much. And just for those who are in the Los Angeles area, to let you know that on Sunday there is a huge march for victory that will take place. And I'm on that meeting, so they figured maybe they'd only get around 10,000 people, but we do believe that it's going to be far more than that. And they're working with government officials to make sure the area is blocked. It's going to be from the Pan Pacific Park all the way again to the Turkish embassy. And it's on a Sunday and at 3 p.m. So that is, and it's all over the Facebook and news, and it's being disseminated. I believe they're also putting 30-second ads on national TV and on cable TV. Now, I just want to really, for the interest of time, really, we could go on and on, but I do want to thank Lusine also for her relentless effort. Armenians across the globe are going to be donating, and please keep donating through Armenia Fund, himnatram.org. Donate to ensure the survival of the nation and the people. Give with their spirit and lives in mind, please. And Maro, your courage and tenacity, your passion, your energy, it just inspires us to step up to the job, to give toward the victory through Armenia Fund, Himnatram again, and to ensure the well-being of our women and children now and in the time of peace. And I certainly hope that next time we speak, we will be in peace. I encourage you all to give to the Women's Support Center through our website, www.aiwainternational.org. And last but not least, I need to thank our listeners across the globe. Please look out for future AIWA events. And if you're not yet a member of AIWA, we encourage you to go to our website, whether it's to donate, to become a member, or to be a participant and join this global network of women who share our values. And our values are integrity, respect, inclusivity, service, and relevance. Please stay well, stay safe, stay informed, and stay relevant.